afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. As always, on the fourth Wednesday of the month, I'm joined by Mark LaBarr, conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont. And today, Mark brings us up to date on Audubon's golden-winged warbler geolocator project. Great to see you again.
Always nice to be here.
Maybe you could remind us about what this project's all about.
So this has been pretty exciting for us. It's been a project that we undertook starting back in 2016, and we're just now seeing the results of it. We've been going around and talking about it with a lot of our Audubon chapters, and we've kind of taken a spin off of Tolkien's and called it There Back Again, because the project basically tracks, we've got a blue-winged warbler there on the left and a golden-winged on the right. It tracks these birds as they migrate south, lets us know where they winter.
And there's a little backpack almost on that one on the left.
And that's the geolocator. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on.
Okay.
So, you know, we had to put these backpacks on. The birds had to fly down to where they winter. They had to come back. We had to catch them. And so it's been a long, and then all that data needed to be processed by our partners at the University of Maine. And the focus of it was really a bird, the golden-winged warbler. Now, this is a bird that I've talked about. It's a gorgeous-looking bird that breeds here in the Champlain Valley. The golden-winged warbler, the largest population in North New England, is in the Champlain Valley. And we started looking for these birds back in 2014. We found a lot more than we thought there would be. These are priority species that are declining across a lot of their eastern range. And so we were looking at how the Champlain Valley fit between the populations that bred in the Appalachian Mountains and some of the other populations that bred in the Midwest, and we kind of straddle those too.
Okay, and you also had a close relative as well?
Yeah, so this is the blue-winged warbler.
Okay.
This is a close cousin of the golden-winged warbler. They're very similar. Here in Vermont, they sing the same songs. They actually hybridize and produce crosses, so you can find birds that look halfway between the two. And we find them in the same location, and both the golden-winged warbler and the blue-winged warbler are on Vermont's species of greatest conservation need.
Okay.
So they're priority conservation birds in the state.
So where do they live?
So they like the Champlain Valley, primarily because they like this old field mix. So as you drive around the Champlain Valley, you see the old farms that are the old pasture lands, hay lands that are slowly growing back up, have kind of that shrubby component, but also have a forest next to it. And that forest piece is really important because the birds do use that forest. The males use that, but they'll breed out in that shrubby area. They're ground nesters, so they build their nest very close to the ground, if not right on the ground. And what's really cool about them, there's been some studies that have shown that the males will take the male young into the forest when they're old enough to fly, and the females keep them out in that shrubland. Here's what a nest looks like. Very difficult to find once you're out there, and you know, we find a lot of this habitat here in the Champlain Valley. And again, once we started looking for the birds, we found more than we thought. So we've been working hard with landowners to manage for that shrubby area, remove invasive species, and have been successful in doing that management and seeing birds show up in the habitat that we've created.
Great. Well, where do these birds spend their winter months?
So this was part of the next question. We've been working, as I said, with landowners, private and public, to try to work on the breeding grounds, but we didn't know where our birds went in the wintertime. So golden wings and blue-winged warblers, they migrate down to Central and South America. The golden-winged warblers, you can see there on the left, tend to be a little bit further south.
Yep.
And the blue-winged warblers on the right, a little bit more towards Central America. And again, people have been finding that the Midwestern population of golden wings tends to be in Central America, and the Appalachian population tends to be in South America. So we wanted to know where our birds were going. And so that's what the geolocator project was all about.
So tell us about these geolocators. What are they?
They are these small little battery-powered backpacks that, and you can see one here, that we put on. We have a harness that goes around the bird's legs. We put on the back, and it is able to tell latitude and longitude by time of day, length of day, and time. So it collects this data, records it, saves it, as the bird moves up and down, so we can find migratory paths, wintering grounds, and then when they bring it back, the kind of difficult part is it's not like a backpack that shoots up to a satellite or anything like that. We actually have to recapture those birds and take those backpacks off.
I was going to say, it sounds like a really simple project, but when you stop and think you have to first catch the birds,
yes,
put the backpacks on them,
right,
and then try to catch the same birds again.
Yes, go back to the same areas, hope they're coming back to the same areas. Here's a blue-winged warbler with that same backpack, and you can see it a little bit better. This is me holding the wing out there of the blue-winged warbler. And you see the blue-winged warbler has that whitish wing bars as opposed to the golden of the golden-winged warbler. But yes, so, that was our hopes, and we put about 36 of these geolocators on, and we were able to recover 9 of them, which is actually pretty good. 7 golden wings, only 2 blue wings, about 50-50 for each of those birds, so we could see where both species were going. And, once we got them off, we were then able to analyze the data. But catching them again, the second time, was not the easiest thing.
I bet.
I'm a licensed bird bander. All of the work that we did was federally approved and state approved. So we needed to catch the birds. Again, we put those backpacks on. The other thing we did was put these color bands on. With a metal band, so that when the birds did come back, you couldn't always see the backpacks, but you could see that color band, and we would know
that was one of your birds.
That was one of our geolocator birds to try to catch. I've talked about bird banding here before on the program, and we use mist nets, and we set those nets up. We would find the habitat where the bird was using, we would set the net up, and oftentimes we would use sound to try to draw them in, as well as decoys. And so I brought along our little golden-winged warbler decoy that we used. This was something that was made for us by Gary Starr. You can see he's signed it, and it has a little hole there that we put a dowel on, and we would set this little guy up in front of the net and play back recordings and hopefully catch the birds that way.
And did it work?
It worked, but it was a lot of work. Yeah. Sometimes the birds, we were using the same playbacks. They weren't as full the second time around.
So they remembered.
We would set up a net like this one shot of us. We have a mist net. You can kind of see the decoy in the back. That's our our Antioch student who helped us out, Stephen Lamond. And we'd have to play playback. In this case, we had to not only play the song of the male, but we had to play the song of the female. And we finally did catch this one golden-winged warbler down in the Middlebury area. And fortunately, what was really nice about that is that Gary Starr, who made the decoys, was there to join us. And you can see myself, my coworker Margaret, and you can see the decoy, and I'm holding the golden-winged warbler that we caught with the geolocator.
Terrific.
So,
now you mentioned that you put on over 30 geolocators and you retrieved 9.
Yep.
Where do you think the others went?
So it could be, the golden-winged warblers are very patchy distributed. It could be that they were over on the next field or habitat. We only went back to the areas where we had caught them. So there is a chance that this year, and we'll be out looking for them again to see about birds that we may have missed last year. The battery will have died, but we'll still be able to get the data down. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So now, the one cool story is, you saw that last bird, that one with the color band, with the white color band. Well, I started calling them Mr. White, or Mr., in this case, Mr. Orange. So Mr. Orange, which is right here, we caught him up at Japragues Park, and you can kind of see that orange band on his leg. You can. This is a picture by Mark Vachier and his wife Peggy, and we happened to be at the park the first time going out looking for these. And we bumped into these folks, and we were talking about, Margaret and I were looking for these birds. They said, we just found one over here. And he took this picture, he showed us, and as we zoomed in, we were like, That's it. It's Mr. Orange. So we went over, we set up our net, set up the decoy, and within 10 minutes, we had caught Mr. Orange.
Wow.
And here you can see him with the geolocator that we removed from his back. We released him after this, and what was really cool is he is now returned to that same area at Chapragues Park this year. So we caught him in 2016, caught him again in 2017, removed the backpack, and now he's still singing away.
And that's in Heinsberg.
That's in Heinsberg at Chapragues Park. It's a great place to go and see golden-winged and blue-winged warblers as well as other birds. And so just a great story. We did a presentation in Heinsberg, and somebody had seen Mr. Orange that morning. So we were able to tell the crowd that this bird was still around, right.
So here's the big question. Where did he go?
So that was the best part about it, is this is what the maps look like when we, the folks from the University of Maine, analyzed the data. So we would collect these geolocators, plug them into our computer, and it was just a bunch of numbers that ran across the screen. So it took a lot of massaging and work in order to get this images. And you can see Mr. Orange ended up down in Colombia.
That's crazy.
So, we know where he's wintering, those dark blue areas. It's not an exact thing, the latitude and longitude, but it gives you a general area of where these birds, where this bird went. So we assume he went back to Colombia last winter as well.
That's amazing. So how about some of the other birds?
So, we put birds on up and down the southern Champlain Valley. We put these, geolocators on the birds. One area was down in the Middlebury area, and this is the results of a golden-winged warbler and a blue-winged warbler that we had down there. And you can see these birds showed up pretty much in the Panama area, maybe a little bit further north for the one there on the right, and suggesting that our birds are not necessarily all wintering in the same spot. And so these two birds showed up there. We also put a bunch of geolocators on birds down in the Helen Buckner Preserve, which is the Nature Conservancy property down in West Haven, Vermont. Great place to go if you ever want. This is a golden-winged warbler that we caught there, and you can see this one went to Columbia too.
Yep.
We caught another one that ended up, this is a blue-winged warbler, that ended up again in that Panama, Costa Rica zone. And then the last one that we caught was another golden wing that ended up in that Panama zone.
Interesting.
So it seemed like most of our blue-winged warblers ended up where they should, Central America a little bit north, but our golden wings tended to be in Colombia or in Panama, which in the end could really be beneficial for them. One of the reasons that the Appalachian population is thought to be declining is not maybe so much in the Appalachians on the breeding grounds, but they nest or winter in the eastern part of Colombia and in Venezuela, where the habitat is really getting hit hard.
Oh, okay.
And the habitat in Central America is not getting hit as hard, and so populations that use those wintering areas are more stable.
What about migration?
So the folks at UMaine are still working on this. A graduate student, Anna Buckhart, who is working under Dr. Amber Roth, and this is kind of where we're at with the migration. She's still trying to figure out some of the details of that because the birds...
So it's not a straight shot.
It's not a straight shot, no. These birds more than likely are coming down. They're going and launching off of the Florida area, spending some time in the Caribbean, going to the wintering area. But what's interesting, and a lot of birds do this, they're coming back up through the Mississippi Flyway. So they come back a little bit more to the west, and then you can see scoot over to the east. So it's kind of a round migration path.
So it's a great project. What's next?
So, a lot of what we're doing, Anna's still working on getting that migration stuff. It'll be really important for us to know stopover sites so that we can help protect that habitat. It's great for us to know that our population here seems to be using wintering areas that are a little bit more protected. So our working with landowners, managing for land is worth the effort, and we're continuing to do that. What we'd really like to know is a little bit about the genetics. So because these birds hybridize and cross over and produce these hybrids, we'd like to know whether some of our golden-winged warblers are carrying a little bit of blue-winged warbler genes, and that's why we might be seeing them in the Central American region down in Hawaii.
Always more to learn.
Yes, plus somebody needs to go down there in the wintertime that would be a great goal, to actually go down and work on some of the projects down there and see what they're doing down in that region.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. Mark, if you have a question, a bird-related question for Mark, you can write to him at Audubon, Vermont. That's 255 Sherman Hollow Road in Huntington. The zip code is 05462. You can also email your questions to Mark. His email address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions, and he'll try to find answers on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.